Okay, I gave you guys a longer break than I originally said. But thanks everybody for coming back. Will the clerk please call the next panel of witnesses to testify on the resolution?
Jenny Greenberg, Executive Director, Neighborhood Gardens Trust, and Ryan Gittler Muniz, Environmental Justice Organizer, the Public Interest Law Center.
Hey, Jenny. Hi. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Jenny Greenberg, Neighborhood Gardens Trust. Good afternoon, Chairperson Gaudier and members of the Committee on the Environment. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Jenny Greenberg, and I serve as Executive Director of the Neighborhood Gardens Trust, which is Philadelphia's land trust for the preservation of community gardens and shared green spaces. NGT holds ownership for over 50 gardens across Philadelphia and is working with 30 threatened gardens to find land security. I'm gonna cut my comments a little bit. We've heard a lot today already about the history and impact of gardens and kind of jump to the crux of the matter. Despite the many social health and environmental benefits that gardens offer, upwards of 200 green spaces face an existential threat because the people maintaining and cultivating them do not have legal land tenure. Philadelphia is at a crucial moment. Gardens are being threatened by speculation and development with growing frequency. In the past 6 months, NGT has spent $100,000 to purchase land at 2 long-standing vibrant gardens from developers who are planning to build on them. Once a garden is gone, it is gone, along with all the community benefits it provided. Urban green spaces should not be viewed as an interim land use until development comes. New housing and gardens are not an either-or. Philadelphia has enough land for both, and together with affordable housing, gardens are an essential piece of the puzzle for a humane, livable, and equitable city. Often the footprint of a garden includes multiple lots with a mix of public and private owners. It's vital that the Philadelphia Land Bank, Redevelopment Authority, and Department of Public Properties work in partnership with NGT and other urban ag organizations to untangle these complicated title issues, which Ash correctly described as a bowl of spaghetti. It's also important that we secure funding to purchase gardens from developers that acquire garden land when there's no other pathway to save them. Since Philadelphia created the land bank a decade ago, we've heard over and over from the public that community green space is a priority. As a result of this advocacy, the city's policies allow for the nominal fee disposition of city-held gardens to nonprofits. This is so important, and I commend the city for adopting this policy. But the devil's in the details and in the execution. There are serious challenges with the way the disposition policy has been interpreted and implemented by PHDC, which has had a crippling effect on our work and many other groups. The numbers speak for themselves. Between 2015 and 19, NGT acquired 44 parcels at 13 gardens from city agencies. But since 2020, we haven't been able to acquire a single lot. Ironically, we're having easier time negotiating and buying land at market rate from developers. The impasse with land disposition is hurting gardeners. These volunteers work selflessly to keep their neighborhoods clean, beautiful, and strong, often for decades. But they live in uncertainty and fear that one day they will go out and there will be bulldozers in the garden. 2023 was such an important year for Philadelphia's urban agriculture community. Parks and Recreation unveiled the city's first urban agriculture plan. The city acquired U.S. bank liens for close to 90 garden properties, preventing their loss at sheriff's sale. We need to keep this momentum going. These are promising steps, but to truly realize the vision of the Urban Ag Plan and to fully support, protect, and amplify all the good that gardens and farms do, we need productive working partnerships between the community and all of the various city agencies to streamline fair and transparent pathways to garden preservation and to provide gardens and farms with the resources and support they need. Thank you, and I look forward to continuing to work with you on this important issue.
Thank you. We greatly appreciate the work that you're doing in our communities, and we stand with you around making this land disposition process more favorable to our urban gardens and farms. And congratulations on your recent nomination to the Land Bank Board. Which we hope to be voted on positively tomorrow. This is a very crucial perspective that has to be present in this, our conversations around the land disposition policy moving forward. So thanks so much. Ryan, please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Ryan Gittler-Muniz. Thank you, Chairwoman Gautier, and all the members of the committee for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Ryan Gittler-Muniz, and I'm here as an environmental justice organizer on behalf of the Public Interest Law Center. I am also a volunteer with Iglesias Gardens in Kensington and a Solidarity member of the Food Policy Advisory Council. The Law Center is the only organization in Philadelphia that offers pro bono legal representation and community organizing to urban farmers and gardeners. Through our Garden Justice Legal Initiative, we have provided legal assistance, referrals, and advice to over 70 gardens since 2011. We use both law and advocacy to preserve Philadelphia green space, which is being lost due to development pressure. Today is an exciting day to reaffirm our commitments to Philadelphians past, present, and future who tend to urban green spaces and make our city better as a result. Agriculture has been practiced here for thousands of years, first by the Lenni Lenape, or original people of the Delaware Valley, and later by European settlers and descendants of enslaved Africans who brought their own ancestral growing practices. Today, urban agriculture can be found in every neighborhood of the city and is deeply rooted in our Black, Latinx, and AAPI communities. Philadelphia gardens and farms are places where people come together, express themselves freely, grow food for their families, revive connection with the land, practice culture, combat land-based oppression, heal from gun violence. The list goes on and on. These valuable spaces reflect the work of community members who transformed neglected land around them, using their own labor and resources to make something beautiful for their neighborhood to enjoy. They deserve our admiration and our support. From the city's urban agriculture plan, we know that Philadelphia has roughly 450 growing spaces, and 2/3 are located in racially concentrated areas of poverty, meaning over 50% of residents are people of color and over 20% live below the poverty line. The public health benefits of maintaining green space in these communities are well documented and compelling. Urban agriculture has much to offer Philadelphia, yet we are at risk of losing many growing spaces throughout the city. According to the Philadelphia Garden Data Collaborative, we have lost at least 140 known gardens and farms since 2008, and more than half of the city's garden land is insecure, meaning it is not owned by the garden or a trusted third party like a community land trust. At the Law Center, we help gardens secure their land, ideally by gaining legal title, but sometimes through long-term leases. That process is complicated because gardens often steward multiple parcels, each owned by different public or private entities. Sometimes garden parcels are privately owned by speculators or owners who may be deceased, even when residents have tended to them for many years. This makes the land vulnerable to development or, if it is tax delinquent, to sheriff's sale. The majority of insecure garden parcels, almost 3/4 according to the Urban Ag Plan, is owned by the city of Philadelphia. These parcels may have pathways to land security, but community gardeners, farmers, and advocates have urged the city to improve its approach to green space preservation for more than a decade. Growers still face persistent roadblocks from city landholding agencies like the Philadelphia Land Bank, including multi-year wait times on applications and a lack of staff dedicated to garden and green space preservation. We are grateful to the committee for giving urban agriculture practitioners and supporters a platform today, and we reiterate the need highlighted in other testimonies for increased material support. We ask that City Council consider additional funding for the Philadelphia Food Justice Initiative, which provides grants to Gardens Combating Food Apartheid, and agencies like Parks and Rec, whose Farm Philly program was integral in producing the 2023 Urban Ag Plan. In addition, we want to stress the importance of ensuring city resources for urban agriculture are invested in land that is secure, meaning it is owned by growers or an entity that will preserve the land over time. we urge City Council to do more to facilitate land security for community green spaces, like funding land bank acquisitions for eligible gardens and farms on privately owned tax delinquent parcels. In holding the majority of threatened garden land, the city has the potential to champion the long-term success of urban agriculture in Philadelphia. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I look forward to answering any questions.
Thank you for your testimony and for your vital work and for being such a great partner to our gardens and farms. Minority Leader Brooks, do you have questions or comments?
Yes, I have a few questions for the panel. Jenny, you said that NGT was able to acquire 44 parcels from the city between 2015 and 2019, but has not been able to acquire a single lot in the last 4 years. And is a clear indication that our system is broken, right, for gardens and agriculture. How can the city and the land bank fix this problem?
So we have applications into the city at 10 gardens. Some of them, the disposition to NGT was approved by council before 2020, and they just never went to settlement. So they're stuck somewhere in what is a long and complicated process of approvals. We have probably 5 additional applications we haven't even bothered to put in because things aren't moving. One of the major obstacles has been, the city introduced in the 2019 disposition policy a new concept of doing a 30-year self-amortizing mortgage on gardens. So before then, when nonprofits acquired gardens, like the 44 parcels, when we acquired those, they were deed restricted for open space, and there was language, so if it ceased to be a garden in the future, the land would go back to the city. And that seemed like a reasonable approach. This additional requirement, which it's not really required by the disposition policy. It's laid out as a tool that could be used, but PHDC across the board of all the landholding agencies has been treating it as if it is a requirement. And there were a lot of really problematic terms in that 30-year mortgage. We were finally, through a lot of advocacy and many stakeholders coming to the land bank and raising concerns about this. We have been working with all 3, like the Land Bank, Redevelopment Authority, Public Properties, to negotiate the terms of that mortgage. They've been unwilling to drop the requirement. We still hope that in the future it might be dropped, but at least the things that would have done harm to the nonprofits, we feel like the language has been improved upon. We still, we agreed to maybe 6 weeks ago now, and still none of the pending dispositions seem to be moving.
Thank you for that. My next question is, what impact do these policies have on the security of gardens in Philadelphia as a whole?
So I think it's very stressful for the gardeners. They don't know the future. It's preventing us from being able, once a garden sort of joins NGT's preservation pipeline, we start to work in partnership with the gardeners, with Pennsylvania Horticultural Society and others to start to channel support and resources so that they're continuing to grow and build capacity while we're pursuing preservation. But until we hold the land, we can't invest in major capital improvements. So, for example, I don't know if Elizabeth is still here from the Holly Street Garden. We've been working with Holly Street for years trying to preserve it. They really need a water line, and we can't put in a water line because we don't hold the land. So it's holding the gardens back. Another garden in West Philadelphia, Viola Street, you had gardeners in their 70s and 80s hauling water from a hydrant down the street because we couldn't get the city to just allow us to put a line in, even though we had raised the money to do it because we didn't own the land yet. So it's just holding up progress and causing a lot of stress for people.
Okay. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate all the work you guys do around the city, around gardens. And congratulations on the appointment. And I look forward to our continued working together moving forward.
Great.
I don't have any more questions.
Okay, thank you, Minority Leader. We will now move on to the public comment list. Oh, thank you both for your testimony. I think this is the first hearing I've been in where everybody gets applause. I keep forgetting to stop for all of the applause, but it's really good energy. Okay, we'll now move on to the public comment list. Due to the high number of testifiers here today, we're going to ask that all commenters limit their testimony to 3 minutes. Ms. Jones, can you please call the names of the first 3 commenters?
Chris Bolden, Jamie Green, Dr. Ashley Gripper, and Dimka Braswell can all make their way forward.
Sorry for the false start earlier, Chris, but glad to have you here now. Can you please state your name for the record and proceed with your comment?
Yes, my name is Christopher Bolden Newsom. Can you hear me? Okay, all right. Well, first again, I want to thank you all, honorable council members, for having us here today too, and I will try as much as I can to keep to 3 minutes, but I will make no promises. I want to start first by inviting all of you, as much as you are able, to recall who in your family or in your childhood were the farmers, the gardeners, or the natural healers. These can be people who were in your family line or in your community that you grew up in. And I want you to hold just an image of them in your mind right now. Who were the farmers? Who were the gardeners? Who were the natural healers? We dedicate this time, and I give my testimony to honor them, your family members, and my farming ancestors too. And I thank God with you for our roots, knowing that all of our roots hold up the tree of our lives. So again, good afternoon. As I said earlier, I'm Chris Bolden Newsom, and I'm here representing primarily and chiefly Sankofa Community Farms, which is located at Bartram's Garden in sunny Southwest Philadelphia, and I'm glad for all the love to Southwest that we've been hearing today. Councilman Harity, I'm sad he left because he was really big up in Southwest.
He used to live at Bartram's.
You said he did?
He used to live at Bartram's at the village.
I had a feeling. I actually had a feeling. Yeah, okay, good. Well, hopefully at some point he can hear us. But I'm also representing True Love Seeds, which is a seed company and I was happy to see that some of you all had True Love Seeds alongside the Sister Seeds, both excellent organizations that we've been deeply connected to. It's a network that's like a family out here, folks who are growing food in Philadelphia. I'm originally from Mississippi, the Mississippi Delta, and that's where my people have farmed for themselves since emancipation, right? So since around 1865 or so. And I've been in Philadelphia now since about 2008 or 2009, and I was attracted to Philly because of its long history of urban gardens and farms, and also because of the little islands of Black Southern culture that are tucked away in its neighborhoods. So I am, as I stated earlier, representing Sankofa Community Farm. I'm a co-director and the head farmer there, and alongside Ty Holmberg, who's also a farm co-director and the programs manager, we do the work of inculcating not just healthy habits, but culture into the community that we work in. As I said, I am a Mississippian. I'm an unashamed, unabashed Southerner. And I come from a long tradition, just like many, if not most of you actually, of growing food and of what it means to pass that on. At Sankofa Community Farm, we're an African diaspora-based farm, so we are, much like Doña Iris's operation, a culture-based and a culture-rooted farm. And we do this right next to Bartram's Village Apartments. We're situated in the historic Bartram's Garden, and we've been a part of Bartram's Garden now for about 15 years. I think it's an excellent example of how you can do land tenure in this work, right? Because we have been able to be the beneficiaries and the benefactors, you know, of so much good in terms of resources and the such. So we grow chemical-free food all year long. And we have multiple programs that address the needs of our community. Many of these programs were born out of, you know, requests from our community itself. I'll get to that here in 1 second. We run a youth program, a year-round youth program, where and a lot of folks I think have alluded to also having youth services. Ours is a year-round youth program where we're working with young people, mostly from Bartram's High School, so right in the neighborhood. And they learn the basic skills of growing food. They learn the connection of this food to their cultures, to their historic cultures, right? Because again, you have to have stuff in context for it to make any sense, right? For it to be something that actually you engage in, something that's not just checking a box or getting a check, right? They're learning to cook this food. We have a full culinary program in which they learn the significance of the food, how to prepare it in healthy ways, and how to prepare it in ways that teach them about the cultures that they came from. This is vitally important. We have a community garden where over 65 families from the neighborhood and Southwest and beyond get to grow food and get to rub shoulders with each other and get to talk to folks that they never would have spoken to before, right? And so we have wonderful programs like that. But I wanted to speak to what was brought up earlier. And again, I think that Councilman Harity asked about this. Indeed, there is a thriving home garden bed program under the leadership of Ty Holmberg and Haja Glover, who is here, I think. Sister Haja still here? Okay, Sister Haja Glover, yes. Pay attention to this young lady. You'll be seeing her around town doing this work. Because the community requested this. Eventually, we started this work, right? We have a crop field, a 3-acre crop field where we're growing food. We have 2 weekly markets where we are disseminating this food into the community at prices that our neighbors can get at, right? We have a thriving volunteer program where folks can come from the neighborhood and learn how to grow food or relearn, be introduced or be reintroduced, again, to growing food. And then the community started saying, well, you know, wait a minute. I can't make it to the community garden to get a bed, right? Or I got so excited because I came in contact with some of this stuff at Sankofa that I want to do this at my house. I want to do this on my block. And again, we live in a city, particularly in Southwest, where unfortunately we don't have large backyards in Southwest Philadelphia, right? But we have front yards. People who have houses have front yards oftentimes, right? And so contrary to all, I think, a typical or traditional American aesthetics, we came and built the beds right in their front yards. And they're growing food in their front yards. And they're doing it by the hundreds. We will come and provide food, we specifically, Haja and Ty, will come and we'll provide the boxes, we'll provide the soil, we'll provide seedlings, and we'll get people started and give them access to regular classes so that they can stay in touch with the thriving community of farming. So our work on the land, like I said, is an example of what it can look like to resource urban growing initiatives in this city. Now, we do all of this work, and so much more that we don't really have time to mention here, with relatively few resources. Few, I say, up against the work that's needed, right, and that's being asked for. But we're not alone. All of these organizations that you see that have been represented here, many of them, as well as a growing group of urban ag organizations that came together in Southwest Philadelphia now about a decade ago to create what we call SWAG, a Southwest and West Agricultural Group, right? And these are some organizations like the Neighborhood Land Power Project, formerly known as Urban Tree Connection, the Children's Hospital Garden, One Art, Building Your Home Apothecary, all of these organizations, right? Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, who's been represented here, Get Fresh Daily, the Philly Orchard Product, Viet Lead, so many other organizations, right? We decided that in the absence of the resources, right, that we feel that we should be getting from the city. And I want to acknowledge how things have changed since I've been here since 2009, all right? I'm not coming here as a naysayer and just to tear down. I want to acknowledge that there have been changes. But as Dr. Vitiello said, I believe, that there's been up and down, right? And so we'll be riding high and we'll be getting this movement going. This is growing food. And when you're growing food, you're not just growing sort of units of calorie, you're growing community. And so it can't be up and down, it has to be consistent because it's a relationship. It's a relationship that we have with the soil, and that relationship with the soil then informs relationships between human beings. It brings communities together. I won't belabor the points that have been made before around all of the many things that urban growing, that city growing can do. Y'all know about it. Councilwoman Brooks stole all the fire out of my speech by starting off with how violence is reduced, violent crime is reduced, poor health care outcomes are reduced. It's hard to measure what doesn't happen, right? But we can tell when we look at what it looked like before and then what it looked like after we had these entities, you know, that there has been some change, right? And we know it. We know it in our bones. That when you start doing this work, right? When you start getting in contact with the soil and you start doing it in community with people, that changes happen that aren't always quantifiable. And I want to think about this, and I want to invite you all definitely as well too, as our city mothers and city fathers, to think about what can the city be doing to respond to this. The community is already doing it. The communities are already coming up. A lot of these folks that you all see, and these are organizations, and folks have named their organizations. We've come in with our titles and such, and you know, we come bearing gifts, right, to get your attention and to keep it, right? But a lot of what goes on ain't documented. A lot of what goes on doesn't have the name of an organization. A lot of this is Miss Susie, Miss Jones, these different folks who have been doing this forever. They came up, like me, from the Deep South, or from the Caribbean, or from East and West Africa, right, from Southeast Asia. They came up from these places with this already in them, and they did it where they could, until the pressures of life made it more and more difficult to do that. The stories that I'm told is that when so many black folks came up here from South and North Carolina, particularly in Georgia, that, because I always ask the question, well, why when I go to certain neighborhoods I don't see, you know, I don't see the gardens, I don't see, they had them. Right? But the pressures, right, of being able to maintain a home, of being able to keep a home, being able to stay home, right? The crack epidemic, all of these things that came and wiped out also culture. Wiped out culture. Stopped, it sort of halted the passing on, these traditional things that human beings do, right, when they're left alone, which is to pass on life-giving traditions and life-nurturing traditions to their young. All of that was cut. And I want to invite you all, as I said, as city mothers and city fathers, to remember that the folks are already doing it. And, you know, similar to the you know, they call it the ecological services, what bees and the birds provide and that sort of stuff. Like, nobody pays the bees for her pollinating the flowers that's going to become your food, right?
And can I just ask, we have like 24 people to go after
I
you.
understand.
Can you just
I understand.
take the next,
and I see
20
it.
seconds?
But and like I said, I'll go ahead and I'll wrap it up. But I want us to think about the ways in which, just like the ecological services, that we don't consider, that we don't pay for. The way that you pay for those services, right, is by not hindering them, right? The way that we can actually support as a city, the organizations and the individuals who are doing this work, and I'm coming to my close, but the organizations who are doing this work and the people who are doing this work is to assist them with programs. Folks have talked about, you know, having stabilized land tenure. That is vitally important. Now, we are blessed at Bartram's Garden to be in a situation where we have that right now. And it has made all of the difference. It's made all of the difference for young people, for at least a generation of young people. Almost all of our kids, and I want this to be on the record, go on to secondary education or to some trade. Almost all of them, universally. And then they come back and they show us what they've done. I have trouble hiring and keeping staff, right? Because again, what we get with the system that is set up currently, right, are seasonal workers and slots and vouchers for seasonal workers only, right? I can't keep people who are trying to make this their life work, if that's what we have. So I think that we as a city can do better, and I want to invite you all, like I said, and you know, to just sort of remember that these are your folks. These are your communities. And they're calling out and they're crying out and they're already doing the work. How can you help them? How can you help them to keep the land where they're doing the work? How can you help them with resources? How can you help them, for instance, when they're going to try to set up a garden in a lot, right, that they have to pay $12,000 to $20,000 for a black backflow preventer, right, in order to tap into city water? What can you do to help them? That's a hindrance. Then they got to either go guerrilla gardening somewhere, right, or they just put that dream on the shelf, right, and people suffer. And I'll end with this, y'all. The first line of defense for any national security or any people's security is a healthy populace, a healthy and resilient populace. I want to invite the city to help make Philadelphia that healthy and resilient populace again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you, and we appreciate what you're doing for people in our community. And congratulations on your 10th anniversary. That was last year, right? Congratulations. Oh, okay.
Chris, I just want to say, like, it was really amazing to see so many young people out here to support you, and just out here just to show what the Sankofa Garden is doing in Bartram Garden. So I want to appreciate you, just say we appreciate you for being one of those folks that's passing on traditions to young people. Because a lot of times, I don't want to be a part of the skip generation. You know what I mean? I want to be a part of the generation that's imparting into the next generation. And I want to highlight and say thank you for being a part of that as well.
Thank you. To God be the glory.
Okay, I think we have 35 people to speak. So I'm just going to ask, I'm going to try to be a little more stringent on the time that people get. So I'm going to ask that people do their best to stick to the 3-minute limit. Hi, Dr. Jamie, how are you?
Hey, Councilwoman Jamie, I'm fine.
Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Certainly. My name is Dr. Jamie Green, and I am delighted to be a part of this hearing. I represent the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture as the newest director of the Eastern Region, representing Secretary Russell Redding. So I'm speaking on behalf of the Secretary's office to share our excitement and exuberance. I'm also an urban agriculturalist. My family owns Think and Grow Farms, which is based in Vaux High School up in North Philadelphia. We started out in urban agriculture with a shipping container farm at One Art Farm in West Philadelphia. So I am an 8th generation, following up on what Brother Chris was saying, I'm an 8th generation farmer. I'd like my 9th generation to stand up. Is my daughter Naya here? Naya has the capacity to build an indoor farm, fully operational, from the ground up. And the reason that I wanted to speak to you both as my policy advocacy role and as a practitioner is to say that I was honored to participate in the initial steering planning committees for the Urban Agriculture Strategic Plan. So I can speak from being one of the people who was sitting on the floor in the library when we were doing that strategic plan during COVID. And so I speak to you as someone who can say the Secretary fully supports the city of Philadelphia endorsing this urban agriculture plan, setting up a line item to support this going forward, and we will continue to invest in urban agriculture as we have over the last 3 years, Philadelphia being the most active component in the state for urban agriculture grants out of the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. So we are excited to say that. I want to also highlight that my extraordinary colleague, Doug Wolfgang, will be speaking to you a little later. He's the Executive Secretary of the State Conservation Commission, and what we were going to publicly ask you to do is to host a hearing on a conservation district and the resources that it brings to the city as the envelope that surrounds urban agriculture. There are 67 counties in Pennsylvania, 66 have a conservation district. Guess which one does not? We need to correct that. And so there are 3 points that I wanted to share with you in addition to my role as the head of urban agriculture development, policy development for the Commonwealth. Your focus, sir, on economic development cannot be said strongly enough. As a practitioner, as a farmer, I understand that for me to generate revenue, Food is what I grow to feed the community. We were doing that during COVID, giving food away in West Philly. Horticultural plants drive more revenue. Our folks need to understand where the revenue is for the community and where the revenue is to sustain themselves. We did a survey of all urban agriculture grantees, just finished 2 weeks ago. The vast majority earn less than $25,000. They cannot hire a single person to sustain the operation. These young people, including my own, deserve an understanding that urban agriculture is a subsector of one of the most powerful industries in the Commonwealth. It is a subsector of an industry that is receiving public-private investment. So as the city goes, the state wants to support this effort. And so I'm going to cut my comments short there out of respect. But thank you for hosting this hearing. Please consider hosting a hearing for the Conservation District that Doug is going to talk about a little bit later. We need that in Philadelphia. Thank you.
Thank you. We'd love to hear more about that. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your comment.
Good afternoon. My name is Ashley Gripper. Good afternoon to City Council members and blessings to my grower family here. Thank you to all the council people who organized this hearing. I was born and raised in Philly, and my family has called 25th and Diamond home for 5 generations. I'm also a professor, researcher, and faculty member at the Ubuntu Center, which is part of the School of Public Health at Drexel University. I was a member of the planning team for the Urban Ag Plan, Growing for the Root, along with Ash Richards, Soil Generation and Interface Studio, and I'm currently on the Membership and Governance Committee of the Food Policy Advisory Council. And with the guidance of my ancestors, drawing on the lived experiences of my parents and community, I also founded an organization called Land-Based Johns. And our work is about helping Black folks in Philly remember our spiritual, organizing, and land-based living traditions, and is guided by many of the themes and lessons of Octavia Butler's parables. Land-Based Johns was also funded by the Philadelphia Food Justice Initiative. So I was asked to testify today because my activism, advocacy, and academic work are all focused on Philly's urban ag movement and the environmental, community, and spiritual health impacts of growing food. So today we've heard a lot about why agriculture is important to individuals, neighborhoods, and communities. We've heard about, we know that people's lived experiences and expertise should be enough to help you understand the magnitude and power of agriculture in the city. In case it is not, I am here and was asked to share some of the data and documented history about agriculture, specifically in Philadelphia. So there are 3 points that I want to highlight that I think were touched on or not touched on at all. First, the story is always about land. Land is always at the center, and we are all a part of nature, and it's our responsibility to care for land. There are ways that you all and your fellow council members can help support us doing that work. First, as we talk about Philadelphia Food Justice Initiative, a lot of people have been impacted by the work and the programs that came out of that work. That's because Philadelphia Food Justice Initiative does not limit its funding to nonprofits. A lot of the people here in this room operate businesses, they operate projects that are outside of nonprofits. And this is important to moving the work forward because some of us need to operate outside of that traditional structure in order to do the work in a way that is meaningful to the people that we care about. The second point is around increasing consistent funding and support despite the pressures of development and gentrification. So a little bit about the history of Philadelphia. Vacant lot, so our history is rich and long. Citywide vacant lot greening was encouraged and first recorded in 1897. It continued during and after World War II in the form of victory gardens. And during these time periods, the city offered infrastructural support to community members who wanted to practice self-reliance and grow their own foods on abandoned and unused land. But the era of deindustrialization in Philadelphia that started in the 1800s continued well into the 1970s and 80s. And after hosting automobile and electric industries like Ford and GE, Philly found itself with fewer companies, leading to fewer jobs for its residents. And after World War II, the population decreased from 2 million to 400,000. So between the 1950s and 1990s, several things happened. There were waves of migration to Philadelphia by Puerto Rican immigrants and black people from the South. Also, many white homeowners and landowners left the city and moved to suburban areas during this time. So the sharp decrease in population and loss of industry left thousands of vacant lots and abandoned homes. So during the 1990s, the city began to decrease its infrastructural and programmatic support for community-led ag, even though Philly still had 31,000 vacant lots and 26,000 abandoned homes on record. But this trend is not new. And what we've seen throughout Philly's history is witnessing a patterning of when the city supports agriculture and when it decreases that support. So historically, a decrease in economic and infrastructural support of the city's growers often coincides with waves of gentrification and development. So you draw your own conclusions. We see as people come into this city, agriculture becomes less supported. But this decrease does not stop us from reclaiming these lots for what we need it for. So that, my second point was to have that funding be consistent. Land security. Jenny talked about production and infrastructure support for gardeners without land security. How are we supposed to get water? How are we supposed to get the structures that we need if we don't even own the land? There's no funding that we can get when we don't own the land. And my last point is that this work is spiritual. I didn't hear a whole lot of people talk about the spiritual nature of the work that we do. I heard people talk about violence. I heard people talk about crime. And for me, I'll speak about black people because I'm black, but disconnecting black people from land, nature, and agriculture is violent. Our spirituality is connected to the land, it's rooted in the land. And when you take us away from that, there are ills that come. There's a spiritual sickness that comes. So if we want to talk about violence, we want to talk about crime, we want to talk about being well and being healthy, then it needs to start with allowing us to be on the land in the ways that we were meant to be.
Thank you so much.
I'll just say that was heard loud and clear. I think that was Dr. Gripper. Heard loud and clear. I think I'll just note for the record that it's really encouraging to hear folks talk about that who are not, and I'm making an assumption here and I apologize if it's wrong, who are not necessarily a part of the institutional church, for example. I'm a minister, I pastor a small church, and recently there's a brother from Baltimore named Dr. Heber Brown, who, the head of the Black Church Food Security Network. I know that you just did your testimony. Have you all interacted? Is there any collaboration going on? Very good to hear. Awesome. I'm encouraged. Thank you for your testimony.
Good afternoon. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your comment.
Sure. My name is Dimka Braswell. I am the operator of R&B Farms. It's an integrated farm with my partner, Bryce Rowe. I am also the chair for Philadelphia County, co-chair Pittsburgh National Resource Conservation Agency. Also one of the representatives, local representatives from USDA and Farm Services, and I am a grower. I've lived in Philadelphia since 1996. My background is more emergency health care, UPenn Hospital, that sort of thing. In 2018, my partner and I attempted to purchase land from the land bank. We were unsuccessful and unfortunately were able to, failed from purchasing land because at the time the land bank as well as certain city agencies are not able to accept state or federal funding for agriculture or growing. It seems in 2016, someone in your either PIDC or Philadelphia Housing group had revoked our county's insurance for protections for urban agriculture or environmental products, meaning we can't, all of us are farming at a deficit because we have to purchase our own insurance. As one of the few grower producers that have gone through this particular training, something that we've all developed, in committees. This is a grower-producer training given by the FDA. This very large notebook here has information for us to soil test, water test, where we can go get information for our animal care, hatchery service, goats, whatever. These kinds of trainings, a lot of us grower-producers have and usually have to go outside of the county. When we failed to purchase our land, we wound up having to go to Poughkeepsie and Coatesville for representation for urban growers. There was none at 2011. Between myself, Food Advisory Council, the Food Trust, Parks and Rec, and all these other organizations here, we developed an actual committee chair with state and federal government in urban agriculture, environmental, and construction for growers and producers that would be interested in taking state and federal money to bring jobs to Philadelphia, but also bring larger agricultural interest to Philadelphia. I know some folks are very interested in the hemp processing plant that went to Somerset County. In 2016 and 2017, myself and others did present that information to City Council. Unfortunately, they rejected it, so the plant had gone over to Somerset County. We have done a lot of work, and I'm very grateful for everyone to talk about the spiritual connections of it all. I unfortunately handle all the dry information of policy, funding, and technical assistance. A lot of the programs that these folks are talking about that are part of the USDA, we've all have access to. My particular issue is the city needs to, A, listen to the people who are growing here, also listen to us representatives, because we consistently change a lot of information for urban agriculture. We no longer use the term community gardens for Philadelphia or Pittsburgh. We use micro farms because most of us are farming on 800 square feet or more, and because of that, we weren't able as a state or federal group to give these folks training or education funding or what have you, but because we decided to change the standards, because Philadelphia is the center of the Farm Bill since 2012, we decided to listen to them and advocate with them to change the state and federal funding. That's why you'll see a lot of other groups and organizations within the state of Pennsylvania advancing a lot of things. That's because of the hard work that everyone behind me has done over the decades. I deal with only dry information. My position as a chair is to speak directly to city council members, the mayor's office, LNI, and other city agencies to explain to them what this new information is, how the standards go, and where the funding is coming from, as well as where the funding goes. Myself and my partner, we've made a decision to not force the issue of purchasing land through the land bank, to focus solely on the policy issues to ensure that other people can be successful in reaching this agriculture money. I am, once again, open to y'all, City Council, for any questions or information or anything that is specific to your district when it comes to urban agriculture funding, technical assistance, or what have you. I understand that I am not the most liked person in this room sometimes because I deal only with the facts and data, so I am grateful for a lot of the folks in this room that actually pick up where I can leave off as far as the hard data and the facts. But as usual, I sit with the Office of Sustainability within the Food Advisory Council. I report every quarter to state and federal agencies like Secretary Redding, as well as ValSec, who's one of the secretaries of Urban Ag at a federal level. I always offer myself to y'all for any information. Please contact Food Advisory Council. You can meet with me, phone, Zoom, whatever. I've already met with a majority of the growers. They have this information, and there's still money available for technical assistance and training. And this is what we're trying to bring to Philadelphia. So every grower here in Philly has the same access to information and opportunity to grow with their communities, fund their communities, and keep their food and communities safer. So. Oh, and what I was showing around, that little box there, that's part of the PA Preferred program. Most of the growers in Pennsylvania are on that program, and that keeps our food prices low. Those eggs right there are $4.49, have been $4.49 even at the height of the pandemic in 2020, but a lot of people don't know or understand that this particular program keeps us safe, I'm using air quotes here, from inflation because the products on those and that program strictly for Pennsylvania folks. And a lot of these growers would like to be able to get onto that PA preferred program to expand their reach. But once we have some policy issues taken care of, it is my hope that these growers will go on to expand themselves and save their communities. So
Thank you. Thank you so much for your testimony and for your work, and we like you just fine. And we look forward to working with you. I am going to hand off the chairship to Councilmember O'Rourke just to take care of some other council business. But before I leave, I just wanted to thank Minority Leader Brooks and Councilmember O'Rourke for this wonderful hearing, and thank everybody who participated today while I was here. It truly has been amazing and insightful. Councilmember, you're going to... right here.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for all those that have testified. Can the clerk please call the next group of commenters at this time?
Omar Tate, Jethro Heiko, Douglas Wolfgang, Alexis Wiley.
I saw Omar yesterday. I don't think he's here. He's hanging out with his children. Hi, how you doing? Hi, how are you? Good. Good. I'm Jethro.
Doug Wolfgang.
Hey, Doug.
Blessings and greetings to both to you. Jethro, if you can state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Sure. Sorry, I gotta get my testimony out here. My name's Jethro Heiko. Thanks for having me. Good afternoon. Unlike the school district where I waited 6 hours to testify 2 weeks ago, at least here I'm actually getting educated. So thank you all. Thanks for this opportunity to share my experience with and passion for Philadelphia's agricultural sector. Again, my name is Jethro Heiko. I'm here testifying in my role as the Reparation Commons Design Lead for Reparation Works. For 30 years, I've been working to repair the world through community building, including many audacious projects and initiatives. I live in East Oak Lane with my wife and 2 teenagers. I'm dedicating my testimony to a friend and farmer, Nala Bloom, who died way too young 6 months ago. I cannot match her light or brilliance, but I hope to share a bit of the passion she had for community farming, which she shared with me and so many others. 4 years ago, my children and I tapped our maple tree in East Oak Lane and made maple syrup. It was a very challenging and sweet experience. The next year, we went door to door to recruit more families in East Oak Lane and identified trees, and eventually created Oak Lane Maple, which led to a university partnership, which was awarded a $500,000 USDA grant to create similar maple programs in the region. In 2022, with Wyncote Academy, we brought maple sugaring to Philly High School and other students and families in our city. And we made a lot of maple syrup and led many workshops with groups that are here today, or less groups now because a lot of folks have to go. Tapping maple trees connected me to a vibrant, creative, and essential sector in our city, the agriculture sector. Across Philly neighborhoods, there are thousands of creators, founders, tenders, tapping, foraging, pruning, growing food from land with support of our neighbors. We are farming land, foraging and harvesting food, leading workshops, gathering our neighbors, and creating healthy communities that are resilient in the face of gun violence, climate and mental health crises, and high levels of poverty. As the Reparation Commons Design Lead for Reparation Works, I want to share our support and commitment to the Urban Ag Plan and encourage the City Council to use all of its power to implement this roadmap, the Urban Ag Plan, for the growth of the agriculture sector in our city. At Reparation Works, we are creating a lush, or co-creating with all of you, a lush and thriving Philadelphia through the sacred power of reparations. We do this through return on divestment from settler colonialism and chattel slavery. By centering repair and healing with faith-based organizations and other institutions, and individuals, we are unbinding money and hopefully soon land, uplifting spirit and forging relationships in support of communities that have been harmed by historic and current systems of violence, land theft, and oppression. And we know the city can play a more significant role in the healing and repair of our city. To me, that's what the Urban Ag Plan represents, a roadmap towards a lush and thriving Philadelphia where everyone participates, as my family has had the opportunity to do, to engage with the land and the natural resources that sustain our lives and help us thrive. Today, I urge you to listen and support Director Richards and their urgent call to protect gardens and farms that are threatened. To support this legislation and fully fund and support the Urban Ag Plan, which has a clear set of funding and policy priorities developed through a robust, multi-year public process. To work with us to identify and secure public and private land, including land owned by faith institutions and others, to divest of underutilized land, which should be used for permanently protected agriculture and other community assets. Thank you so much for your time and attention to these critical needs and this tremendous opportunity for our city. I'm happy to answer questions and to meet with you or any member of the public here today who is interested in co-creating a lush and thriving Philadelphia. Lastly, an invite. It's pheasantback mushroom season along our creeks. I may be the only person that knows that. Maybe not. Hopefully there are others. It's amazing. It's a mushroom. It smells and tastes exactly like watermelon rind. And that's how I know Omar wasn't here today, because yesterday I dropped off 30 pounds, which I foraged in under an hour and a half along the Toucanee on Monday morning after I dropped my kid off at the train. He's gonna make chow chow out of it, I think. It's amazing. Anyway, if you'd ever like to join me and my son as we forage and harvest Philly's flora and fungi for honeysuckle provisions in West Philly, please come and talk with me. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Douglas?
Yes, thank you, everyone. My name is Doug Wolfgang. I'm Executive Secretary of the State Conservation Commission. I'll piggyback on Dr. Green. We're so fortunate to have her in the Department of Agriculture and the leadership she's provided in urban ag in Harrisburg, and in particular in my line of work, just really coordinating the efforts to form a county conservation district here in Philadelphia. So what is the State Conservation Commission? We operate under joint authorities of the State Departments of Agriculture and Environmental Protection, and we try to find that equilibrium or that balance between the two. But we address some of the biggest issues of our time, including land use, water quality, food security, climate change. These are all national issues, as we know, but they affect us regardless of where we live, but they disproportionately affect disadvantaged populations, and that's something we've always known. And so I think this is a real opportunity here, looking at this through the lens of conservation, to provide funding and opportunities for Philadelphia that will align with all this amazing momentum with urban agriculture. I think the timing is so critical right now to form a conservation district. But we oversee funding and resources for 66 county conservation districts across the state. As Dr. Green mentioned, 66 and there's 67 counties in Pennsylvania. So the need is there, and you know, we feel that working locally, conservation happens at the local level, and the mission, we have over $200 million in the commission that we have, record funding right now, that is trickled down through county conservation districts that make their way to the ground for agriculture, conservation, environmental, and natural resource related projects. And so we want to make sure that Philadelphia is positioning itself to realize some of those funds. Conservation districts are a form of quasi-state and local government. And as I mentioned, we administer grants and funding for voluntary conservation at the grassroots level. But if you look at the staff and the directors across the state, it's 1,000 individuals strong who do amazing work. Board of directors are appointed by the county governing body, and nominating organizations represent diverse interests within the community. History of conservation districts is long. It goes all the way back to the Dust Bowl era, when a huge cloud of windblown dust came from the Midwest because of tillage practices and blackened the skies here in the East back in 1937. Pennsylvania's conservation district law was formed in 1945, and the first district was formed in Potter County back at that time. So it's really amazing to be here having a discussion, in 2024 about forming a conservation district with you all, along with this amazing effort that's going on with urban agriculture. But there's never been more momentum for urban ag, and the recognition of ag's importance from food security perspective and for its economic value, and Dr. Green and I talk about this as well, for its conservation value. We've heard the themes of stewardship today and that connection to the land and sustainability. Producers, whether it's a farm in the middle of rural Pennsylvania or an urban farm that's in Center City, Philadelphia, it's that sense of pride and that stewardship and that noble task of producing food for people who we all need to eat, right? And we're in areas that just have such a shortage of availability of fresh food. So we feel that districts can provide some of that technical assistance and financial assistance to help link some of these programs and efforts together. But agriculture and the definition of agriculture is diverse and evolving, and so too is conservation very specifically. And I'll wrap this up. Practices we could fund through programs that would benefit Philadelphia urban ag: irrigation systems, compost facilities, agroforestry, soil health practices like cover crops, hoop houses to enclose areas that have a more controlled environment for growing, soil testing potentially, environmental education, tree plantings, watershed restoration, practices that mitigate the effects of climate change and help to build adaptation and resiliency, and also help to ensure that the latest technologies from wherever we get research funding from make its way to the work that Urban Ag is doing here in Philadelphia as well. And this all gets done through partnerships with many organizations. I think it would also, forming a district would open up new partnerships with environmental, natural resource, and agriculture organizations for the city. So again, just really what we wanted to say today is the Commission fully supports a hearing to determine the public's interest in forming a conservation district per Section 5 of the Conservation District Law. And we also fully support consideration of this urban ag plan as reinforcement of the public's interest in forming this district as well. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for your testimony. As I am witnessing and looking, and I know Alexis is coming up, seeing folks moving, and I think we're getting late in the hour. So what you may hear as you are testifying is the buzzer going off because I'm setting it at 3 minutes. Obviously, most of us have not necessarily been held to that, and so don't feel rushed, but just know that that's what that is. And if you are so inclined to be more concise with your statement, do so, if you don't mind. Thank you very, very much. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Alexis Wiley.
Please begin your testimony.
All right. Good afternoon, council members and my beloved growing community. As previously stated, my name is Alexis Wiley, although many of you know me as Lex, and I'm an ecologist, a cultural geographer, and the community farm educator at Sankofa Community Farm at Bartram's Garden, and I've been farming for about 4 years now. I'm a native Philadelphian with familial roots in the Carolinas, and my family and ancestors were free farmers, sharecroppers, enslaved agricultural workers, and indigenous African farmers. I'm the first in my family to return to growing since my great-grandparents' generations who sharecropped, and my grandparents were the generation that fled the South, but still found themselves growing food in their backyards and in side lots in Newark, New Jersey, and in Philadelphia. My paternal grandmother was actually part of the Airport Community Garden in Southwest. I began farming as a way to understand the experiences of my ancestors in my community. As a Black American, my experiences outside the natural world, within the natural world, were marred by histories of displacement, violence, and exploitation. However, through working the land in a culturally rooted effort, I understand that my legacy of land-based work in the African diaspora is larger than our trauma. This is knowledge that I've come to know and embody, not just at Sankofa, but in many of the garden spaces in our city that engage with our ancestral and cultural roots. You see, community farms and gardens in our city are more than physical sites of growing food. They are sites of cultural rematriation where we, from our respective traditions, cultivate senses of place, of home, of health, of livelihood, and dignity. Many of us organizations and farming individuals in this room share resources and connections. We are actively building communities to support our efforts to combat food apartheid in our city by collaborating together. For example, as Chris mentioned in his testimony, through education via workshops in the Southwest West Agricultural Group, also known as SWAG. Our presence and active engagement of our neighbors in the aforementioned regions of the city support their food sovereignty and liberation by offering them opportunities to learn and participate in a food system that has not and does not honor their voice or agency. It offers an outlet for building community cohesion, supporting our safety and harm reduction efforts in our neighborhoods. And moreover, it increases their physical access to green spaces, affording them opportunities to support the sustainability goals of our city and enact lasting positive changes to our city's ecology, including supporting local biodiversity and managing floods. Imagine that we, the farmers and the neighbors we serve, were secure on the land that we live on and cultivate. With guaranteed roots, lots would not only be converted into affordable housing, but also accompanying green space that supports us by reducing heat island effect, feeding the block, and providing communal gathering spaces, to name a few examples. The knowledge, community building power, and people to expand the impact of this work are already here, right here in our city. The farmers in this room do not grow food as a hobby. It is not recreation. It is our livelihood which we do to feed our community the most affordable, healthy, and sustainable food we know how. The people power is already here. I'm asking for our city's council help in supporting what we already do, and I'm echoing many of the calls that have already been stated. I'm asking you to remove the barriers to land access and tenure, to dissolve the convoluted mechanisms to land ownership or occupation, especially for growers, so that more folks can get access to the land to grow and commune. And this feels critically important because many of the growers in our city come from farming cultures and have been historically displaced and dispossessed abroad and in Philadelphia. Secondly, I'm asking you to pay us to fund and resource our work robustly. Agriculture work is severely undervalued across, thanks, y'all. Agriculture work is severely undervalued across the world, despite the fact that we are feeding the people. Our work is valuable. We go beyond the food aspect, and we are also simultaneously cultivating community. We deserve funding and wages that directly support workers, as I mentioned, because this is our livelihoods, this is our jobs. Our city is uniquely positioned to set a precedent for dignified, valued, community-operated, and organized urban agriculture movement. On behalf of the farmers at Sankofa and our larger growing community, I ask City Council's action in supporting our goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexis. I can just say, as we're getting ready to call the next witnesses, that this is a very beautiful thing to be a part of today. For all of you that have come out here to provide this testimony and to speak on these things and to see so much melanated people. Speaking to this is really encouraging my soul. So thank you for all of your testimony and all the work that you do to do that. Can the clerk please call the next group of commenters, please?
Judith Robinson, Wadia Gardner, Harry G. Heyman IV, Meg DeBrito.
Good afternoon. As I mentioned earlier, you'll hear a buzzer go off. That is because I set the timer at 3 minutes. If you are so compelled to be more concise, we'd appreciate it, but please don't feel pressured. We're grateful for your testimony today. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Wadia Gardner. It's wonderful to be present with the City Council, so I thank you very kindly for this opportunity.
Thank you. You can begin your testimony.
I am representing Hunting Park Community Garden, a 260-page document, 10 years in the making, 3 years of community engagement, 1 year and 14 days since the launch of the Urban Ag Plan. And where are we now? As a native Philadelphian and lifelong resident of Hunting Park, that's 19140, the poorest neighborhood in the city of Philadelphia, the poorest of the top 10 cities of the United States of America, and an original member of the Hunting Park Community Garden since 2011, I can tell you that the implementation of the Urban Ag Plan is what's needed to regulate, systemize, and stimulate the already existing agri-activity, economy, and ingenuity, thanks to the past, present, and current hands of Philadelphia residents like myself. Let me see your hands. These are the hands of urban agriculture in Philadelphia. These hands. It starts with the land. She who owns the land controls it all, your very existence, from resources like food and water to labor to housing. But until the rampant gentrification under the guise of affordable housing starts being pitted against community gardens, micro gardens, urban ag will be considered nothing more than a niche project, a boutique activity for the retired and the well-fed, and some science teachers. Urban ag is more than food production, it's workforce development. It's investing in industry and production like solar, hemp products. There's millions in cannabis, there is billions in hemp. We should have had two hemp companies, two hemp manufacturing entities in this city back in 2017, 2018. One for North Philly, one for South Philly. Philadelphians would be working right now. The city wouldn't be desperate looking for 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people to participate as workers in the city. It's health and well-being. It promotes dietary and nutrition access, right? A community participation through cross-generational activity, a healthy and natural method for interacting and engaging within our environment. But more importantly, it's about the control of our food system, our country, our community, our county, our neighborhoods. We can all recall and look back on how long it took the city to respond during the pandemic. And OEM's idea of keeping us safe was to keep us out of our community gardens, away from the very food that we didn't have access to during the pandemic. Yes, we have pantries and farmers markets, but charity is not sustainable. It keeps people dependent, wanting, insecure, and unsure. Charity should not be the norm. It simply should not be the norm. And farmers markets are great unless they have a plan that includes training communities to ultimately run their own farmers markets and establish relationships with local farmers, then they too are nothing more than a charitable entity. And if that charitable entity, like a farmer's market for which Hunting Park had a 15-year relationship, decides to go away, then we're back to wanting with our hands out, looking for charity. Philadelphia, a world-class city, a World Heritage city, and yet we're not on par with our international brothers and sisters when it comes to urban agriculture, and we're the only county in the state of Pennsylvania who has yet to have a conservation district. Pretty sad. Okay, so let's not let our ignorance propel us forward. Let's let the assurance of this 260-page document provide economy, a robust workforce, land ownership, revenue, income, commerce for the city of Philadelphia, okay? The USDA is here. It's on Broad Street. The first time in the history of Philadelphia we have this kind of federal representation in urban agriculture, and I, like many average citizens, was in the room to make that happen. PASA is here, Pennsylvania Sustainable Agriculture, one of our largest state representatives, nonprofits when it comes to participating in urban ag again. I was in the room, like many Philadelphia citizens, to make sure that that happened. Every element, entity, and resources here waiting for Philadelphia to participate. There's no more time, there's no more excuses for this level of inactivity. Workforce development, economy, community engagement. You want people to work. You want the violence to stop. You want Philadelphians to be engaged. Give them a reason to be invested in their own communities. This is the time, and this is our opportunity to do it. City Council, the ball's in your court. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Please state your name and begin your testimony.
Yes. Hello, my name is Meg DeBrito. I have been a Philadelphia resident for 23 years. I come from a Cape Verdean background and an Irish background. My family is Midwestern farmers and growers, and I have family from an island culture that did not have soil they could grow in. So I come from across the spectrum in understanding where urban farming and our national farming need to move forward. I have worked at Penn State College of Ag. I've worked for Greensgrow as the executive director. I've worked for PASA as a development director. And I now work for Impact PHL, which is working with high net individuals, philanthropic, and family offices to get them to take their money out of the global market and put it into local markets. I'm looking to have these people see what they can invest in Philadelphia around urban agriculture. When I speak to these people, they understand that urban agriculture is here as one sense of impact, but they cannot see a profitable impact. And I know, having worked on the ground with these communities, that there is profitable impact there in terms of workforce development, in terms of product in the larger regional capacity, and developing tools and resources for farmers to grow their business sense here, while we have the FSA here, as well as other statewide and national organizations moving into the city. The city does need to get behind this in terms of investing in where this can grow as a workforce and as a public resource. In saying all of that, I do say also, well-being is something that some of those top dollars are starting to fall behind in terms of arts, in terms of physical space that brings well-being through flowers, medicinal herbs, things that are outside what we're looking at in terms of our vegetable market. So where do we also support those growing areas within the field of urban agriculture? As we are moving this forward, there are real estate investors who are looking at how do I keep urban farms in my community, even though I'm investing in real estate. And so how do we get larger scale impact investors to put their money behind that along with the city? As the city develops this and pushes this urban ag process forward, we will see that impact investors can step behind the city in terms of lifting these resources to people in this community. That's all I have to share. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate you waiting and your patience today as you've come up and given that all these words are super important. We appreciate you. Will the clerk please call the next group of commenters at this time?
Lisa Bonatibus, Eloise Young, Princess Rahman, and Joshua Warner.
Blessings and good afternoon.
Thank you and good afternoon.
Welcome to City Hall. Please state your name and begin your testimony.
Lisa Bonatibus.
You may begin.
Good afternoon, members of the Environmental Committee. My name is Lisa Bonatibus, and I represent Toxic Free Philly and our coalition of over 30 national and local environmental health, labor, and environmental justice organizations. We are grateful to Council Member Cindy Bass for her leadership in sponsoring the Healthy Outdoor Public Spaces, or HOPS, ordinance, Bill number 40025, that was enacted in January of 2021. This law was passed by City Council with a unanimous vote. For those of you who were not yet serving in Council, the law eliminates the use of toxic synthetic pesticides, such as glyphosate and 2,4-D, on city-owned or leased grounds, except in the case of an emergency or with an approved waiver. The law also establishes reporting and signage requirements for all pesticides applied to city grounds. The HOPS ordinance will no doubt prevent many cases of cancer childhood asthma, and numerous other diseases associated with pesticide exposure. It promotes organic, non-toxic land management. You may have heard about these chemicals in the many lawsuits in the news. We're taught that they are safe, but as it turns out, they are really dangerous, just as we were told that cigarettes were safe. So now we're happy to have a law to help keep people, pets, and wildlife safe. I urge you to remember the Healthy Outdoor Public Spaces Ordinance, HOPS, that you so wisely and courageously passed when you implement the Philadelphia Urban Agriculture Plan. These two efforts are aligned in creating a cleaner and greener Philadelphia for everyone. Excuse me. The 6 key goals of the Urban Ag Plan align with eliminating toxic herbicides. Organic food free from toxic herbicides is safer, healthier, and more nutritious. And isn't that our goal here, to let people have access to nutritious food? I brought this beet to show you. I didn't grow this one, but my daughter has a small pot on the roof with some seedlings that she started herself. And if the squirrels don't rearrange them all, she may get a beet the size of an acorn at the end of the summer, but she will be very proud of that, and we will celebrate. Everybody needs to grow nutritious food. But if you spray near food crops, you negate the health benefits. Lastly, I invite you to go to our website, toxicfreephilly.org, where we have loads of information. Feel free to email us, call us, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you for your service to our great city and for your attention today.
Thank you for your testimony. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please state your name for the record.
My name is Eloise Young, and I'm a lifelong West Philadelphia resident, and I'm also on the board of the Mill Creek Urban Farm, and I promise this won't take 3 minutes. On May 1st, Mill Creek Urban Farm formally applied to own the land it has lovingly maintained since 2005. Now, we filed that application with the help and support of Andrew Goodman from Councilmember Gautier's office. Shout out to Andrew. He warned us that the process would take a long time. But why is it acceptable to take a long time to sign over land to its caregivers of almost 2 decades? I urge you to increase funding for the Food Justice Initiative and to champion legislation that supports urban agriculture. Legislation that will make it easier for growers to create, maintain, and own these vital spaces. Don't accept the unacceptable. With your help, we can all eat fresh, healthy, and affordable food, not just today, but for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony.
How you doing?
I'm doing very well, and yourself?
Thank you. I'm
Very
doing
good.
all right.
Awesome. Can you state for us your name?
Oh,
and
absolutely.
for the record?
My name is Princess Rockman.
Blessings, Princess. You can proceed with your testimony.
Thank you so much. First and foremost, thank you, City Council members and everybody who is present today with us, especially the producers and the farmers. It is my hope that in the future, opportunities like this to discuss and hear our voices happen in December or January. It's a really busy time for us, just putting that out there. And I am a farmer and a land steward of Lenape lands traditionally, and I'm etching into the majority of my life that I've been doing this work. And so I'm currently a farmer for Bethel Community Garden, which is a part of their health initiative of Bethel AME Church of Ardmore, whose pastor and executive program director of our efforts is Pastor Carolyn C. Cavanis, who sits on the board for, yes, yeah, okay, oh, okay, that's for you, Rev, who sits on the board of the Philly Urban Ag Committee for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which just opened up a branch here in Philly. And even though we principally operate out of Ardmore, we have a lot of community gardens in Philly that we help to support, whether it be on-site horticultural logistical support and things of that nature. And so while our community is Ardmore, we do consider to have roots in communities that we serve in Philadelphia. So we're here today to represent. And so in the time that I've been doing this work and in my current position, I find that the areas in which we would need your support on the city level has evolved. Rather, the community addressed our areas where we needed support or we've received help. We've transitioned to other areas where we think a citywide effort and attention from you all would be most beneficial. And so, it's my understanding and experience that when you have an impact on culture, you create an opportunity where you're going to influence future generations, which is why there is an extreme disconnect, even though Philadelphia is a Black city, why we have a disconnect from our ancestral ties to farming land and a bunch of negative connotations. And it is also why I am inundated with this need from the community or this expressed concern that we should be reinventing the wheel because of the lack of resources and the lack of cohesion that there is with streamlining those resources so people know where they are. That being said, I've got 3 points where I feel like financial support from the city as well as some city incentives could be of use and could do some good. And so point 1, I would love for there to be funding to support transportation for our seniors. We have the programs. Oh, hello. Appreciate that. We have the programs as the producers. We have the programs, we have the space, and we have the resources. I'm typically on the line communicating with the elders in my community, and the primary barrier is that they can't get to me. And it's disheartening because in this space, in this line of work, our seniors, our elders should be introduced on this platform in positions of power that they've earned, that they deserve, that they need to be respected in. Because if anybody has the wisdom and the knowledge to impart on how to grow food and feed people, it is our elders. And so I appreciate that. That is so helpful. And so if you're having a bureaucratic issue, let us get the money. Let us, as producers, allocate a budget for the funds that you all provide to hire someone, hire a company, a contractor to go and get seniors and elders interested in participating in our programs. That's point 1. Point 2, I am from Philly. I am a Philly native, and I am definitely, I definitely frequent poppy stores, which is a colloquial term for corner stores that are in our neighborhoods. And poppy stores, they're an abundant resource in Philadelphia. They're all throughout. And I do enjoy small businesses. I'm not knocking them, especially during the pandemic. They were a resource. But I want to say, due to their quantity and the reliance of our Black communities on them, we should be investing more in the quality that they provide and to offer or promote incentive to have relationships with local producers, local farms. If anything, this meeting of us together has shown is that we have producers and we have the urban ag centers who are creating food, culturally relevant food, and feeding our people. If there is a citywide effort to incentivize poppy stores, again, a colloquial term, small business owners, I want to respect the effort. You know what I'm saying? Okay. If there's a way that we can increase the partnership and the bridge between their poppy stores, because they're traditionally Latino-run businesses. So if there can be a partnership where we engage the communities in which they serve and also connect them to local producers so that what's being grown around them, the quality of that produce can be reflected where we shop. Point 3, almost done here. Philadelphia, I love this city. And in my current role as a farmer within the framework of a religious institution, I cannot help but recognize the religious vitality of this area, specifically Philadelphia. And I hear a great deal of there needing to be, and I understand of there needing to be access to all of these resources independent of creed. But I think, and I know, and I'm a witness to the power this work has when we acknowledge the creed. That being said, there should be efforts to address religious spaces who are interested in feeding their communities. I think there needs to be a specific resource dedicated to helping religious spaces who service community. The infrastructure is already there. The cultural relevance is already there. Specific funding and resources to help religious faith spaces get in this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Heard. Please state your name for the record.
Welcome. Thanks for having me. My name is Joshua Warner, citizen of Philadelphia for 21 years, former co-director of Urban Creators, consultant for North Square Neighborhood Project, solidarity member of FPAC, general city do-gooder.
Please proceed.
Yeah, so I can't really repeat what's been said. There's been tons of powerful testimony here and shared data, shared feelings, shared stories. What I want to do is just take a few moments to kind of like synthesize a little bit and pass on some observations and some encouragement for this city council and this hearing and what goes forward from here. I always imagined my first time in Philadelphia City Council chambers would be something like huge and contentious, full of yelling and signs. But what I'm witnessing here today is largely like City Council that wants to support, and a whole bunch of advocates that have been supporting, have been doing the work, and it looks like we're seeing eye to eye. That's very promising, just right there. That's worth some celebration, I think. Secondly, I want to touch on a couple points that Ash Richards, our Director of Agriculture, mentioned. They mentioned third spaces, that these gardens and farms often exist as the third space, not home, not work, the third space. I too have an urban planning background. I was fascinated by the third space when I was like young and coming up, and I knew I wanted to work in cities and making places like that. Gardens, farms, and I'll say even like beloved community side yards. I kind of want to lump those in too. Even though they're side yards, they have community functions. They're treasured and beloved by neighbors. These are the quintessential and the ultimate third space. Not only are they a third space where people can gather, but they're regenerative. Every story you heard had to do with regeneration. The Black diaspora, our cultural roots, like regenerated. An elder, Don Angel from NSNP, teaching the PK recipe to North Square neighborhood youth. That's regeneration. We're growing in the land. We're generating compost. This is a cycle that kind of continues to further our spirit, further the city's needs, and that regenerative aspect of these third spaces makes them super critical for the future of the city, I believe. Also, through every single testimony that we heard, I picked up on shared connections. Shared connections in the grower and the learner, shared connections between land and community, between children and families being fed, and between producers. There's a nexus between these things, a shared connection. These regenerative third spaces are the best place for these, like, for the nexus of all the things that are like great and powerful about Philadelphia. Like, I hear Philadelphia history in this room today. Everybody told stories of their past. Like every member of council had a story about their backyard, their childhood, what they're growing. There's such a nexus between what we are doing here in this sector, and it's multifaceted. We've talked about commercial corridors, we talked about safety, we talked about gun violence, we talked about youth and education. These are sites of power. They are regenerative in nature. Every one of them has dozens of connections to people, community, needs, elements that the city is looking to improve. There's a nexus of these things on these sites. The shared connections and that regenerative thing, like together in one place, I can't think of a better investment. If I had $1,000 lying around, if I had $100 lying around, and I put that there, I'm gonna improve kids' lives. I'm going to improve seniors' lives. I'm going to put food in people's bellies. I'm going to make promising programs, or between the school over there and the garden here and the senior center over there. There's no better investment in the city of Philadelphia today. That nexus and that I just want to leave that with you today. And also, there's been a lot of eye to eye, but there hasn't been a lot of details. I've heard Philadelphia Food Justice Initiative raising that by $1 million. I also heard Jennifer Aquilante speak to $6 million of requests and needs, and only $590,000 that they had to give out in the last round. Let's most definitely up that, and let's start pegging all the other pieces of council's business, the new administration's business. Let's peg those goals to urban agriculture. These are sites that are regenerative, they're powerful, and there's a nexus and a connection to many other elements. Taking care of business on commercial corridors, there's tons of commercial corridors near gardens and farms. Where's the nexus between those? Several of the council members mentioned jobs, school groups, entrepreneurship. There are natural nexuses there. All of our policies, all of our plans must actually include urban agriculture, the communities, the farms, and the cherished, beloved open spaces, the side yards, in those efforts. I've read some articles recently about 30,000 homes, 30,000 affordable housing units, 30,000 new build units. Maybe like in the 30,000, there's some homes that already exist and we're just improving things. Where's that metric for farms, gardens, and beloved side yards? Can we peg the metric of 30,000, homes for this administration with some number of gardens? What if that ratio was 30-1? For every 30 new units of housing, there's one garden created, saved, owned, and operated by a community. That would yield 1,000 gardens, 1,000 gardens for the city of Philadelphia across 4 years. That sounds doable to me if we're doing 30,000 home housing units. Another piece, one last piece that I'll mention is there were metrics, there were data thrown around about the numbers of gardens. Where, 2019, the urban agriculture plan happened, there were 450 gardens. We've heard stories over the decades that there were more, they've fallen, they're coming back. We need a count. If we're going to build 1,000 or improve 1,000 gardens over the next 4 years, like we need to know who's there and what's there right now. I really believe that the land bank review that's coming is going to be a pivotal moment for this crowd and for city council. We can start pegging some of those very needed city efforts to urban agriculture. And yeah, that 1,000 new gardens sounds wonderful to me. It sounds like something regenerative that has tons of spillover benefits for the rest of this city, this great city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Will the clerk call the next group of commenters?
Jeffrey Carpenetta, Veronica Fields, Solomon Bay. And Elizabeth O'Carroll, if she's still here.
This is, okay. Yeah, okay, great. Hopefully that works. Okay. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing this today. Yeah, this is great. Important.
Hi. Let me put this to the side. All this is new.
Take your time.
Thank you, council. I just came in to represent my daughter.
Ma'am, can you tell me your name for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry, Veronica
You don't
Fields.
jump, it's totally fine. Just state your name for the record and you can begin your...
I'm sorry, it's been a long day.
Yes, it has.
My name's Veronica Fields, and I would like to, I came to represent More to Love Garden. And the purpose of my attending or coming is to get land security. We need the land secured so that we can be able to own the land, so that we can get the grants that we have written and won and couldn't obtain them because we don't own the land. So that's basically what my purpose of being here. Because we've had a garden since 2019. But my father maintained the land prior to that. Since 1963, he maintained the garden behind where we currently are.
If you can get the information to my team, they can work with you one-on-one to see if it was a name that came up before. I mean, we've been going through a list of side yards and community gardens, so if somebody on my team can connect with you and figure out a way to see what your situation, because we've found various situations moving through. Okay, is it already on the list? Okay, so yes, if you could talk to my team, we can see what we can figure out what's happening with you and your particular piece of property. Okay.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for being here today. Much appreciated and heard. Thank you. Yes, sir.
The last time I testified, I wasn't wearing glasses. It was like 5 years ago. I have to do this now. So
we all still somewhat returning a little bit from COVID.
I'll try without it.
Please state your name for the record, if you don't mind.
So my name is Jeffrey Carpenetta, resident of Philadelphia up in the East Kensington section. And I'm a prior president, founding member of the East Kensington Neighbors Association. But more of my community work is focused around green space preservation. I do real estate as my full-time work, and so I wound up carving a sort of different life path of doing a lot of my real estate to serve gardeners and garden preservation and different nonprofit projects around the city. So in addition to putting together like a green space preservation plan for East Kensington, that section of Kensington next to Fishtown, but just east of Norris Square, I've helped like gardens in West Philly, St. Bernard Garden. Sometimes the folks at Iglesias Garden will reach out, or Norris Square. So it's been a great blessing to merge the real estate work with this preservation. What I wanted to share with you today is really echoing on some points that Jenny Greenberg made from NGT and some other folks who wanted to talk about that land security issue. And, you know, there's some negative things to discuss there, some realities, and I don't want that to overshadow what was shared today. So much beautiful work, so many great snapshots of the gorgeous work happening across the city, which needs funding, increased support, needs to be understood and appreciated, right? And just the fact that you here today are taking this kind of interest in this is like giving me and this family that was assembled here today so much hope. Because there are moments in the journey where we really feel like we know that the city has so many challenges in front of it, and we feel like, man, this stuff that we're doing, it's just it's not a priority in terms of especially when it comes to that hard preservation piece. So I thought, well, out of what everybody shared, what are like the few things that I would want to make sure that you and your colleagues are aware of by the end of today or as we get into the next few months of work? So one is this, that land bank the land bank sort of review that's ongoing and a hearing that's going to happen, that is really of key importance. And we're sort of really pleading with you from our heart that you could work with colleagues to get more granular with us and hear the stories about just what the state of the union is when it comes to the land disposition. And I'm so grateful for Jenny from NGT because she really just nailed it about the dysfunction there. To give you a few bullet points on that, it's like, it really has never been worse. Part of what I felt I could share today with you is that I was part of the original crew of advocates 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago who wound up rallying for the birth of the land bank because the argument was, wow, like nothing's moving, people are showing their hearts and giving their dollars out in the neighborhoods and just there's no land security, and the council persons don't seem to have their right priorities, and there's a lot of funny game playing with the developers and land dispositions, right? So it was held up as what was going to be like finally the moment of fairness for the garden and open space community. And interestingly, most of the meetings for that, the WCRP were convening, were down at Liberty Resources. So it was not just a moment of supposed justice for the garden folks and the open space folks, but also for affordable housing, for accessibility, for visitability, right? And so like when the land bank was finally born, it was a tremendous victory. And then there began some years of like, well, there's a lot of administrative, there's a lot to do. It's very dense, it's very complex. And on good faith, I think what the garden community did is we went back to being very busy in our gardens and assuming that sort of final moment of fairness had come and all would be well after some months or years, right? But what we've learned is that actually, the rules, the process has gotten harder, the whole thing has gotten more opaque, and what has been heartbreaking to discover in the last year and a half is that what we didn't just need to do was endure with time and patience to get through the administrative hoopla. What I think we've discovered is that underneath of it, in the land bank and some of the agencies and behind, like, because there's some administrative levels that are inform that and are behind that, various, attorney kind of aspects of city government. What we have really discovered is that underneath of it, there's really not much heart for the green space thing, quite frankly. And there's really not a desire to convey the land. And there's really not a trust that good things would be done with the land. And there's not much of an honor being paid for the people who stayed in the neighborhoods during the worst years. And not only did they not leave the city, but they didn't just stay in their houses. They continued to be out and present in the community to build something beautiful in a gorgeous act of resistance and defiance, like what Norris Square shared today. So I hope that it's clear to this family here and that you can share it with your colleagues. It's just, honestly, it's kind of unbelievable and disgraceful that like a Norris Square, which I would hold up as a gem, as beautiful as, hey, let's go visit Longwood or some of these other fine things in our region, Norris Square is a gem. It's so well done. And the fact that they have like multiple pieces of land and there's no end in sight, there's no, there's no, like, hey, just wait a little bit more, you know, now it's like there's this rule and let's attach a 30-year mortgage. But the value that mortgage would be valued on fair market value as if it were developable land in the millions. We know that there's deed restrictions, which basically strips the land of its value. So this is the kind of like insult and injury and dysfunction that's going on with this land disposition process. And you know, I'm sorry to bring this kind of like negative stuff to the table today, but you holding this is giving us hope that we could dig into the details. As Jenny said, there's a lot of devils in these details, and that we could work together. We want you to know, maybe a couple last points I'll make. There's no feeling out there like, oh, there we go, the garden activist people who hate development. It's not true. In my neighborhood, 737 pieces of vacant land. When I started doing the mapping for green space preservation, we went to Mark Squilla. He helped us preserve a necklace of them. Tons of development in my neighborhood. There's no like, I think that you would discover that the gardeners are well-focused. We do what we do very well, most of us. We're not anti-development. We want to work to earn your esteem as a strong constituency that deserves to be at the table just as much as the builders and BIA, right? We don't have an organization like that yet, maybe with as much prowess, but we've been meeting. There's like a contingent, an alliance of 30 gardeners. We've been meeting for 1.5 years to try to dig into this disposition stuff. And our hope is that if we could figure this out and finally get this fixed, imagine what we could have done, right? 15, 20, 25 bright garden organizers in the city. We've now had dozens of meetings about fighting and wrangling with this system. We would have rather been serving you as allies to go out and do more community organizing, to build more beautiful things in the neighborhood and take the city up a notch, right? So I ask you from my heart, please consider in your journey as council persons to among all the other battles that you have to fight to lift the city up and solve problems, consider really making this part of your legacy. That years from now, decades from now, could go and visit some of those places and say, you know, it was uncomfortable and I had some tough fights with some other people and I maybe took some hits on it, maybe I lost some points, but I stood with those gardeners to finally fix this. And I ask you to write that story with us, and we'll stand with you for the things that you need. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Very much appreciated.
Nick, could I have this?
Please, yes, ma'am.
Just so you know, like, to your point, this is my project. This is like the longest standing project I've worked on since I've been elected. When we said we were gonna take on community gardens, we thought it would be, you know, we issue something and it moves forward. We're in 5 years, I'm in my second term, and we still have not finalized the problem with Norris Square. And I also believe Ms. Bay's project, so I don't believe in leaving things undone. That's why we're having this hearing. Ash and I have been working together with my team through COVID to get to this hearing. So some of the growers said that this was bad timing. This was the we've been struggling to get here, so this is the time we had available. So I want to thank you guys for taking the time to come out and do this. We did not want to be of an inconvenience, but trying to finagle time when everyone can make this happen, and the time is now. We can't continue to put this off. There is a sense of urgency. We have to finish out what we started, and the only way we can do that together is together. And you guys have brought up some really good points for us to follow up on to figure out some next steps. So while this is still churning towards the end, something else can be gearing up towards next step. One thing I realized transitioning from activism to legislation, it is slow. Like I said, this was a project we thought we were going to be done in like a year or two. Here it is, year 5, for something with a bunch of bureaucratic processes that actually I found out that people before me had been working on it. So we're going to get through this together. We're going to, shift the culture. I hear you. I know Councilmember O'Rourke and some of my other colleagues that I didn't know were so supportive on this issue. So I think we should be able to move forward, and hopefully it'll be stable, not the ebbs and flows like I heard in other testimonies, how we can find a way to stabilize what it means to have an urban gardening culture as part of who Philadelphia is and make our footprint in that. So we are partners. We're in this together. I look forward to connecting. I'm definitely connecting over here to Huntington Park because I live in Nicetown. I haven't been over there yet. So let's figure out how we can get together. And, thank you guys for spending this time with us and all the lovely gifts. I'm looking forward to see what's over there.
Is there anyone else that wishes to testify on this resolution? Yes, the gentlemen that were up earlier. Yes, please, come back.
We have Elizabeth, Erica, Nyambi, Reverend Carolyn Cavanis, Marlena Moore, Eugene Black Crow.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Hoffmeyer. I'm from Lincoln All Environmental. We're one of the schools that we're part of the Philadelphia Junior Manners Coalition. The coalition, myself and Dr. T from WB Saul earlier this year, we brought 21 kids out to Chicago for a national conference. One of our students actually won the impromptu speaking on urban agriculture out there. Unfortunately, she was taking her AP English test today. What I wanted to speak on is earlier there's a lot of questions about the education and bringing it forward and then what are we doing for our students. At Lincoln Hall we have partnerships with around 23 different organizations, Harrisburg University, Penn State University, building that up. One thing I have seen is these green spaces, these micro farms in the community are pivotal for our students' success. Their internships, they're out there. A lot of times they're being introduced to this world of agriculture where they have never ever seen it before. We're graduating a class of students who started the Junior Manners Coalition with students from Saul. That class is graduating the class of 2024. Their introduction to the world of ag, their persistence and passion to develop not only nationally but also develop in their own city of Philadelphia ideas that they have has been expressed through different competitions like the FMC Ag Challenge, which our students were invited down to with WB Saul as well. And a lot of my students, they did have to go to, some of them had work, but we do have one student here, Jordan, who is one of our members of Jordan Riddick, who wants to give a statement on what urban ag in Philadelphia has meant to him.
And good afternoon, my name is Jordan Riddick, and I am a senior at Lincoln All Environmental Science Magnet High School. And what urban ag is like, well, basically how I feel about it is that I believe it's very important. And for example, I know at school we do a lot of things in regards to aquaponics and hydroponics, and I believe that a lot of spaces should actually implement these things into their curriculums, mainly because not only are they good sources of food, but it can also teach people, not only people my age, but younger kids as well, how you could grow plants. Like for an example, with in aquaponics, you can use tilapia and the overall nutrition being provided to the plants from the waste from the fish, and how you can basically produce a lot of food, and it could really help, especially in areas where you have food deserts. Like for an example, I know there was a lady speaking earlier about the poppy stores and stuff like that, and how there are many areas, especially areas in black communities, where there's not that many healthy foods, or maybe there's not that many whole food stores in the area. So being able to teach something simple, like maybe an aquaponics system, maybe if you can even do one at home, will be able to help people produce more higher quality foods. Anything else you want to say about it?
No, I think Jordan summed it up. Also, on the how do we reach the younger crews, one of the things our Junior Manners mission is, we've been in establishment for about 2 years now with a partnership with Saul and the Youth School. One of the big missions we're working out for the 2024-25 school year is partnering with some of the local neighborhood schools in the Roxborough area, such as Mifflin, Shawmont. A lot of them have gardening clubs, but having our older students going there, mentoring with those students, also introducing those middle school students to the micro gardens throughout the city. We have children all throughout the city at Lincoln. They all take the yellow bus in. So from West Philly up to Uptown, we got them all over, and they're going to be spreading the information that they learn, the knowledge that they learn, not only throughout their neighborhoods, but Jordan, you'll be at Temple next year.
Yes, sir.
And we're shooting them from Temple to Alaska, all the way down to, we have one of the Junior Manners members, he'll be running track at University of Houston next year as well, studying environmental science.
And also to speak on the green spaces, actually at school we are actually doing a project on mussels and how they could be basically cleansing agents for polluted bodies of water. And we've been doing experiments on them, basically testing their performance inside warm temperatures of water, inside colder temperatures of water as well, and basically just seeing how their performance would be, especially, let's say, 10, 20 years down the line with things like climate change affecting the globe. And with our experiments, we realized that inside higher temperatures that they were actually much more productive. They were eating much more of the food. We had algae inside of their tanks, and we realized that they were cleaning the tanks much more efficiently compared to the colder temperatures where they were more sluggish, but they were actually dying a lot faster inside of the warmer temperatures. And we were basically partnered with the Philadelphia Water Department, and our mortality rate was only 3% when theirs, I believe, was like 47, I believe. And we think that it could also be a very good thing and an investment for, you know, future, I can't think of the word. Ooh. I can't think. Future plans, you know. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Erica Johnson, for the record. I am representing Master Gardeners of Philadelphia County, Pleasant Playground Community Garden, and Pennsylvania Farm Union, and an appointed member of the wonderful Food Policy Advisory Council of Philadelphia. I am Black and Planted. I teach the community to sow, grow, eat, and create. From the garden, we're creating culinary as well as skincare products, as well as education and teaching the community. Just to give you a little overview of what our small farm or our micro farm is doing, we have a farm, Illadelph Gardens, and we are the only Black-owned farm at Albury Arboretum in Philadelphia. We produce the Jabali Jungle Plant Experience, which is a Black-owned production that will honor and celebrates for the last 4 years Black-owned and Brown-owned farms, plant shops, and flower shops held at the the WIC House on August the 24th of this year. We've had it for the last 4 years, so we always ask for community support in that. I also produced the Jabali Farmers Market, which was held in Mount Airy. We had over 2,000 people last year, which was a monthly farmers market. I asked you, how many Black-owned farmers markets do you know of in the city? How many Black woman-owned farmers market do you know of in the city? Last year, we had 3 Black female-owned farmers market in a 1-mile radius in Germantown. This year, there will be none. I am currently also looking for another space to host my farmers market at this time, while the other 2 have gone into other places and other sectors of urban agriculture. Our initiatives, Grow Green. You talked about growing in schools. We're growing with our daycares as well as our young children in schools, teaching them how to grow herbs as well as microgreens. We are defining what Victory Gardens are as far as our churches are concerned and our organizations. We're teaching our religious organizations and community organizations how to grow gardens again. It makes no sense if we have basketball fields and football fields and we do not have gardens to grow on. That is where the Victory Garden initiative comes into place. We're working with our churches as well as the Black Church Food Security Network as well. We have started within the last 2 months the Black and Planted Seed Library with donations from organizations all over the United States. They're coming to me in Philadelphia, and I am able to get them out not only to Philadelphia, but in the last 2 months we've sent them to Atlanta, Jersey, Texas, Florida, California. So this is a big initiative that we're doing. Another initiative that we're working on is we always see book libraries around the city. My initiative is to bring seed libraries around the city in front of our farms and on the streets so people can access seeds so that they can continue to grow freely. Seed So Swap is my educational series, and we have some other things that we're working on as far as 25. We want to do the Jabali Jungle Ball. This will be an after-5 affair. A lot of times you see those in soil and dirt and scruffy stuff all the time. We want them to dress up, but the initiative is to raise funds for farmers, raise funds for our plant shops and flower shops when they're in emergency situations and they do not have funding maybe to continue on. Maybe this fund will help them in those situations. So in farming and agriculture, we just ask for, we want food sovereignty. We want to be able to give food access to everyone. We want environmental sustainability, education and skill building, community building. We are adamant about green space acquisition and getting land as well as equity. We are looking for cultural preservation as well because Philadelphia Gardens practices Afro-ecology as well as eco-spirituality. So as far as policy advocacy is concerned, we ask for your support in land acquisition and funding as well as policies. That is all as I have to say today. I hope that you will continue to put forth the efforts. The time is now. It is definitely time to stop being waste. Time to stop wasting time. And the time is now to put these policies in place. You have more than enough organization that was here today, enough workers, enough people on so many different levels for us to work together. And that is what we desire, and that is what we would like to work forward to with this new administration. Thank you so much for the floor today. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Please state your name.
Good afternoon. I'm Elizabeth Waring, and I hadn't intended to speak, but since we were here so long, and I've been freezing, I have to warm up. But anyway.
I'm so sorry.
I agree with just about everything that's been said already, so I won't be redundant. But I am going to say that the garden was my respite during COVID. I did not quarantine. I was in the garden. Had other gardeners in there who wore masks and whatever. I thanked them, but that was good. And to piggyback off the compliment the young man that just left. So we have young gardeners who started out young, my children, my grandchildren. They went away, but they're back because they see the need to grow healthy food. I didn't think I would be, and I hope I don't, see the Soylent Green generation, but I see that coming into effect, and I don't know if you know what that is, but back in the day, it's been at least 50 years or more since that movie was out. But it's when we relied on the government for our food, which was just a wafer. So there were no gardens. So we need to preserve as much as we can and teach the young people, because they don't always grow into this. We have to bring them in. And that's what we're working with doing on, at the Holly Street Garden, and I'm sure some more gardens. They have to understand what's really important about the food. And that FDA, I make it the food, the drug, and agriculture. The drug companies are controlling the food industry. If we don't know that, they are. And it's creating a whole lot of our illnesses that we can fix, controlling our green stuff, okay? So that's it, short for today, I'm out. I have to warm up.
They call it a mic drop. Thank you for your insight and your wisdom, and thank you for the time. Thank you for your patience, and we apologize for the cold. That is a critique that many of our colleagues do have. Are there any other persons that are wishing to testify on this resolution? Going once, 2 times. Seeing no one else here to testify on the resolution, this does conclude, Madam Leader, the business of the Committee on the Environment today. The public hearing on resolution number 240347 is now recessed to the call of the chair. Thank you all so very much for spending your day here in Philadelphia City Council chambers. Hopefully we have expressed our interests to work with you all, and more power to the people. Blessings. God bless you. Have a good day.